This episode of the Paycast podcast is sponsored by Sigma, a direct processor for faster payments and higher profits. Learn more at sigma.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paycast Network. I am your host, Chase Gunnell, and I'm joined by a very familiar panel of great gentlemen here with me. I've got my two favorite agents in the world for now, Steven and Carlos. Welcome, gentlemen. And we have another familiar face, Scott Reib.
Hey,
thank you for joining us again, Scott.
Good to be here, Chase.
If you didn't see our last episode we did with this group and Scott specifically, we talked about being a shatterproof agent. So Scott went through kind of a step-by-step process of when agents start out in their career, how to make sure that they are protected and in a good spot when it comes to everything legal, from a CPA to an attorney to a financial advisor, so on. So if you haven't seen that one, go and check that out. On this one, we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of a little bit of what we talked about in the last one and talk about contracts, specifically contracts between agents and ISOs. We have two gentlemen here who have a million years of experience between the two of them in those particular topics. And then obviously Scott is an attorney. So we'll let these guys say what they think is correct about contracts, and then we'll just have Scott tell them what's actually correct.
Hey.
But
game show.
Yeah, right.
We're cool with that. Basically, he's calling us the wrong side, and they got the answer. That's basically what it boils down
You're on
to.
the right side.
Exactly.
So a lot longer.
And I still mess up.
We got it.
So before we get into, like I said, what these guys think is right, let's start from a high level, Scott. If you're looking at a contract for an agent with an ISO, what are a few of the first kind of main things you're looking for, whether they're red flags, green flags, whatever? What's a few first points you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is residuals, right? The whole reason that you guys are in business is because you want to build up those residuals. So you want to look in your contract and see how our residuals going to be treated. One of the keys is what happens when I terminate this agreement, what happens to my residuals. And so you want to make sure that you've taken the time to understand that language. And you're looking for clear and unambiguous language. If it's ambiguous, that's going to go in the favor of the ISO. You want it to be so clear that no one could misunderstand how that works.
Right.
That'd be the first thing that I would want to look for in any agent agreement.
Okay. And for you two, why do you not look for that first? I'm just kidding.
Well, this is going to be a very biased episode. I'm just letting you know.
You brought your lunch.
You're like, whoa, all right, let's do it.
But so actually that does kind of go into my first question for you guys. What, and honestly here, what is the first thing that you look for when you see an agreement? Is it the split?
Wow, that's such a good question, Chase.
Okay, here, let's make it even better.
It's a good question, and I'm going to answer it from when I just started and where I am today.
I was actually about to ask you to do that.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
When I just started, you're looking at the cut. What's my percentage? Young Steve Morris, if you gave me 90%, oh my God, I'm getting 90%. But old Steve Morris is going to say 90% of what? Mm-hmm. Most of these agents don't understand what their split means. Right. If they're getting a split of an ISO that's a wholesale ISO, then a retail ISO, then they get paid. Mm-hmm. So you definitely want to make sure that you understand what your agreement is. And truth be told, when you get the agreement, and this is another reason why I'm so glad Scott is here, I would encourage every new agent to get an attorney to look it over. It may cost you a couple $100, may cost you about $1,000, whatever it costs you, it's worth it, because the amount of money that you can make is way more than what you would pay that attorney for the initial consultation.
Or lose, right?
Or lose, correct.
Yeah.
So I've seen many situations where, like Scott said, they don't understand the language. And a lot of these ISOs, they're going to send you the agreement as a DocuSign anyway. So you're not really reading that over. Mm-hmm. You're signing it without really knowing what's going on. And that's idiotic. That's just personally idiotic.
Sometimes you get the one, hey, if you want your residual, you got to sign this right now.
Correct.
If there's a sense of urgency in there,
be careful. Be careful. And just because you're broke, don't be stupid. That's going to be my one line.
Everybody write that down.
Everybody write that down. If you don't take anything else from what I'm going to say, and I do talk a lot, but this one point means a lot. Don't be broke and stupid. Really, really understand your agreement and get help to understand it. Mm-hmm. But most of them don't.
Wow.
I signed blindly.
Oh, you what?
You did?
I did.
Okay, tell us that story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I came from the W-2 world. So, it's a publicly traded company. That's what it was. You were the employee. who would have known, at least in my world, that you could go back and ask, oh, what about this? If contracts weren't important, there wouldn't be a contract. Mm-hmm. And, luckily I have been in a scenario where I did sign one and the relationship has been good. Clearly now I've switched over to LLC, and I need to make sure that, if something happens to me, my next of kin continues getting paid. Or what happens if this company goes under? How do I continue getting paid? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of what ifs, and a handshake is great, but the agreement says something else.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't want to get blindsided when, mom's in the hospital and you need your money, or you're in the hospital and there's a performance clause in there.
That's right.
That says you have to bring in at least 2 accounts every single month. I'm in the hospital. I can't work. Boom. Bye-bye residuals. Mm-hmm. So contracts are really important.
I've seen that happen with so many reps that they don't find out that they're in a bad situation until they're in that bad situation.
Right.
So just like you said, your residuals, you're expecting them to come every month. And like Scott said, that's the reason why we get into this industry. Actors make residuals, rappers and singers make residuals, and merchant services, guess what? You can make residuals. Mm-hmm. But if you don't read your agreement and know what's expected of you, that's the key thing, is knowing what's expected of you as an independent contractor. What's the commitment that you're getting into? That's the part that I think new agents go into blindly because they're desperate. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, they're desperate, and I think ISOs capitalize on that.
Are there a few more common red flags that you've seen in any type of agreement, and then afterwards that you two have seen in ISO agent agreements specifically, like 2 or 3 things that, hey, I've seen this red flag like multiple times that agents should look out for?
An agreement can be terminated, right? Most contracts you get are going to have a termination clause, and it will spell out how one side can terminate and how the other side can terminate. And so in these ISO agreements or agent agreements, you need to really look and see what is for cause, because they're going to have these 2 definitions. For cause, so someone's done something wrong and you can cancel it, and then for any reason it can be canceled with 30 days notice. And so you want to make sure that you look at those and understand, if I do this behavior, it could terminate this agreement. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know that and you go out and do it, because if you just signed it on a electronic platform, didn't read that document, then you could be in real trouble if you did something that seemed innocuous, but it was violated that clause, because they could have something in the for cause that if you don't act with goodwill, which could mean that you said something negative about them on some public forum that they didn't like, even if it was true.
Right.
So venting online could get you in trouble.
If it was negative about them, that would be a violation of that goodwill clause, and you're out. We're back to the residuals. Those are terminated, all because you didn't know the rules, right? That's the other side of a contract. Is you should sign the contract. It might be a good contract, but you have to know the rules. So you have to know your contract.
Right. I had a situation with a contract where an ISO, this is a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago, an ISO sued me. And they sued me because I left that ISO, went to another ISO, and I did the same thing. They sued me because they were saying, oh, you're taking over our customers, which I did not do. But here's the crazy part about it is I had to have a lawyer in the state where that ISO resided, which was at that particular time was South Florida. Mm-hmm. And I had to hire a lawyer that had it. One of the clauses that was in it that I did not know when I signed it, right? I didn't read it. One of the clauses that was in there was I was prohibited. This is what the contract said, but eventually the judge ruled in my favor. I was prohibited from working anywhere in North America.
What?
So basically, if I left that ISO, I couldn't work in North America. Now, I don't know if you guys know, North America includes Canada and Mexico.
Yes, it does.
And the judge ruled it out because he said it was out of the scope, because I was in merchant services before I was with that ISO. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that got me out of it. So my point is this. I didn't read it, and all those things didn't come to light until I was in the situation. That's why I said that. So my question to you, Scott, is, outside of the clauses that we talk about as far as what you do and you'll be penalized for that, what are some of the other things that you see that an agent should look out for when it comes to doing business with an ISO?
Yeah, you took the next one on my list, and that's restrictive.
I read your mind.
He does it all the time.
Restrictive covenants.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got the 2 parts there. The non-compete, which you just described, where they were saying you could not work in this industry in North America, which that's the broadest I've ever heard of.
Oh, yeah, that was the broadest.
Crazy. When it comes to restrictive covenants, the non-competes, it's all about reasonableness. And so you're looking at, can I live with that, right? And if it's outlandish like North America, you probably shouldn't sign the contract.
Yeah, I was about to go to Brazil.
But if it says within a county or within a certain mile radius, okay, that's reasonable. I can adjust my life to live with that, and that's probably enforceable. Also, if it said 10 years or your lifetime, that's not reasonable and not enforceable. So you're looking for, what does that say, and is it something I can live with, and is it reasonable? The second thing is going to be the solicitation. It'll say non-solicitation, and that's I think we've talked about this before. There's kind of a wrong assumption by agents that they own that book of business.
Right. Most of them think that because when you talk to a rep, they say, hey, I signed that guy up. I go into his restaurant. This is my guy. They're not.
How does that work when, agents have seen, well, it doesn't even have to be agents. Anyone in sales have seen where the FTC said it's against, or what is it? They ruled in favor where non-solicits are basically not illegal, but that's it. The non-solicit doesn't stand. That they rule in favor of the sales rep.
Well, they're very carefully crafted. They do stand in some situations. So you want to make sure you understand exactly what you're signing again. What am I agreeing to? Is it for 1 year? Is it 2 years? How long am I being not able to go take the customer over here and move them? Right, so it's all about. It comes down to reasonableness in most circumstances. So you have to understand, because you can't just go move all your former customers day one. Now, solicit means you've reached out to them,
right,
and pulled them over. If you're doing a good job of marketing yourself and branding yourself in the marketplace, your customers are going to figure out that you've made a change, and they're going to reach out to you.
They'll find you.
That's not a solicitation. When that happens, you want to make sure that you've documented how did that lead come in, so that you can show that you didn't solicit them.
Got it.
It's good to know.
Is there a way that you could tell people or tell agents that outside of just the literal words on the contract, do you ever encourage them to try to judge maybe the character of the ISO?
Oh God, yes.
Wow.
And how would they do that?
Yeah, right, because the contract's only worth the people that are behind it, right? So if you sign a contract with bad people, they're going to use it against you as a hammer. And so you need to do that research. You need to vet people. And I know that we talked about before this recording that there's a lot of recruiters in the business that are actually going out to find agents for those ISOs. And the recruiters are obviously great people. They're friendly. Or they wouldn't be recruiters.
Right.
And so you may fall in love with that recruiter, go to that ISO, and then you meet the owner or the management team, and they're totally different. The analogy that we were talking about was that if you get recruited to go into the Army, the recruiter's going to be charming, and they're going to tell you all kinds of great things about the Army. When you show up, the drill sergeant isn't quite so nice.
It's not so warm and fuzzy.
Someone cut the bonus.
Yeah. And so you could run into that same situation with an ISO. So don't just fall in love with the recruiter or with the sales pitch. Go do your diligence. Meet the people there. Talk to who's in charge. How are they really running it? Talk to the agents that are already there and been there a while. How does this work?
Right.
Do you like it? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Then you sign a contract. And I wouldn't pay a lawyer to look at the contract until I've done that diligence.
That makes sense. And seeing, in this day and age of technology, we have so many ways to vet people and vet companies. That actually is some very good advice. I do have another question about the contract issue. Let's talk on the flip side of it. Let's say your company sells. What rights do the ISO have? Not the ISO. What rights do the agents have when it comes to a company being sold? Does that contract go over to the new entity? Is there a buyout that has to be offered? Is all that have to be negotiated up front? What do you usually see?
So you have an agent agreement with an ISO, and that ISO sells.
Right, that ISO sells to either a bigger company or they walk away. What are the rights of the agents in most cases?
So generally the contract's going to go with the company. They're going to do either a share purchase or an asset purchase, and there's going to be a list of all the contracts that they have, and those contracts are going to come with them. And so you're not going to get a free out of that deal just because they're moving. There's been a buyout.
Okay,
you're going to move with it. you'll just have a new boss, and that's uncontrollable, right? You can't do anything about that.
Right.
It could be a good situation, could be a bad situation.
Now, is that a good time to renegotiate possibly your contract with the new party, or how?
I mean, you can always try, right?
Right.
But they're not going to have any. You're not going to have any leverage.
Got it.
To do that.
We've seen companies that got bought out.
Oh,
and it's either you become our W-2 agent now, or that's it.
Or
like
you're
you're out.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that agents don't think about, because you think when you're coming in the industry, you don't know what the other party, they may be on their way out of the industry. And so that's something that you may want to address. Say, hey, how strong is the company? Where are you guys at? What's your 5-year, what's your 10-year plan? So that way you guys got an idea of where you're going together.
Yeah, because everyone should be building things with the end in mind. And so when you're make longer term decisions. Don't just think about how am I going to get into this contract and go sell and get my first commission, but what's this going to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and ask those questions. What's going on there? Because that's going to make a big difference for you. Back to the contracts, in your contract with the ISO, you could ask to have a clause in it that if there's a sale, that you can opt out.
Okay.
So you can write that in.
Sure.
That's why you need legal counsel.
Yeah.
Do you guys think agents in this industry often will not read contracts and just kind of sign them in a DocuSign like you mentioned?
Oh, yeah, 90%.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Eager to sell. It's an opportunity that they didn't have.
They see dollar signs.
Yeah.
It's the same reason. It's the same thing if you were to ask someone in the music industry, why'd you sign this bad record deal? Why did TLC sign a bad record deal with the number one record in the It's greed, and it's not acting smart. It's acting based on what you think is going to happen versus what's in that actual document.
There's people out there paying tens of thousands of dollars to get into this industry, and
there's one guy that's is $10 grand to train you on to be in this industry. So if they're paying that to him, and once they feel like they got an in, they just sign blindly, and that's the biggest mistake you can make.
Or what clauses are you forced to lease? Are you doing this? Or
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even understand how the revenue comes in, or how it even affects the merchants as they go. Speaking of, let's say if you are out there doing predatory leases or anything like that, is there any liability on me? I'm the one that signed the agreement to sell it. I'm the one making the money.
Question.
There's a financial gain to me. So
Yeah, if there's fraud involved, you're going to be on the hook.
so the merchant can go after
You bet.
the sales rep. The ISO may clean their hands, saying, but there is a contract in place.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the hook.
This episode of the Paycast podcast is sponsored by Sigma, a direct processor for faster payments and higher profits. Learn more at sigma.com.
Do you guys have any particular horror stories that you know of an agent didn't read the contract and then now they're in a
More than
horrible
one.
situation?
Multiple times. Know of a gentleman that it cost him $300,000.
It's a big number.
It's
a big number.
Hey, it's
a month?
It's a big number because he made a big mistake. Part of his agreement, it was in regards to solicitation and what they thought was solicitation. He was able to prove it, by the way, which is good. But over the course of time, what ended up happening, and when I say it cost him so much money, is the ISO kept him in court for so long because they knew that they can do that. I mean, remember, they got more money than you in most cases.
Yeah, right.
Remember, they're
Almost
the ones paying you.
Especially if they're squeezing you.
And so think about it. If one of the clauses is, let's say you're an agent in New Jersey, your ISO's in Florida, and you have to do all your legal dealings here, they know it's a battle that in many cases an agent cannot win.
Right.
So the particular gentleman that it cost him $300,000, it was mostly legal fees, but it was also the fact of him trying to prove that he didn't violate his part of the agreement. So it sucks. And the funny thing is the ISO that did this to him, I can tell you multiple stories about this one ISO, and that's where it boils down to talking with other satisfied 1099 sales partners that work for the ISO that you're looking for. Don't just jump in that. Don't just jump into anything. You would never jump into a marriage, right?
Right.
But we jump into that's what this is.
It is a marriage.
It is. It's a commitment, and a lot of people just jump in blindly, and nothing's good going to come out of it.
Do you guys find that more experienced agents in the industry are open to kind of helping the newer guys that would jump in blindly? Obviously, you two help. You're on a show, but as this is kind of an industry where a lot of it's me, I do my own thing? Do you see that there is an openness to help the new people?
You first.
These conversations are real good. And going back to the previous podcast, when you mentioned a coach, you could have veterans in this industry that have been doing it 20 plus years, right? A lot of them may still not understand the contract side of it. A lot of them have bounced around through the times. They've jumped through different homes. Sharing these type of experiences, the horror stories, people don't know until it hits them.
Right.
Luckily, I have not ran into a situation like that. I know not to bash companies online.
Correct.
Slander can get you back. And I've been in situations where you've reported fraud or whatever, but to protect the high sales rep in that scenario, they're like, oh, no, you're one of those that sees the good things and we see the profits. I'm like, but still don't bash them. It's just, that could come back and haunt you.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the stuff with the agreements. I didn't know that you could redline agreements, and of course the other company can say, hey, this is what it is. But then that's again where the colors come out, and you know who you're dealing with. It is a relationship.
Right.
It is a marriage that you're getting into.
Oh, yes.
Basically this right here, an agreement that you're signing is either a prenup or a post-nup. Right?
I like that.
Right? You could have started one way, and then you could have grown, and then, same way that ISO has grown as well. They've changed legal firms. They've gotten tighter with their processes. They know where they're going, whether they're selling or whether they're not. This agreement makes a big difference. If it says something like 5 years, non-solicit, all that, someone's looking at that with in a portfolio sale. When you have something that says that agent can't touch anybody for 5 years, or that that specific language, it makes that company a lot more profitable to the person that's going to buy them.
And just to add to what you're saying as well, for new people as well as senior people, some of the best reps in merchant services were reps that were burnt. And what I mean by burnt is they didn't read the agreement and something happened to them that was like, oh, I'm never going to let that happen again.
Yeah.
It stung a little bit. It may not have been as big as being sued or anything. Or a lot of times what most reps will find out is when they didn't see the residual part of it, where they had to have a quota of 3 or 4 deals per month. Now, don't get me wrong, you're 1099, you really shouldn't have a quota anyway. But if your agreement says that you have to provide 3 deals a month and you don't do it, well, don't be surprised if you lose residuals.
Right.
So sometimes that becomes an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. But I also equate this business to the sports industry as well. Wherever there's a lot of money to be made, there's also a lot of corruption on both sides. Right. Wherever there's a lot of money to be made, there's a lot of corruption. That's why sports figures have agents and they have lawyers, because they want to look it over. But then you have to remember what your commitment is to that contract. We've seen many cases where a sports figure will do something stupid, and all of a sudden you're losing all your endorsements. You forgot that you had to act a certain way to keep that money coming in. Same thing in merchant services. So whatever you commit to, like Scott said, make sure you understand it. And make sure you carry out your part of it. Because if you don't, it can cost you.
Scott, and Chase, maybe it's on the list, but this one's really big.
Chase, you
have your schedule. You're familiar with the Schedule A's. You're familiar with the splits. And a lot of the times, agents out there, we set up flat rate processings. We ask for interchange audits to make sure that things are being paid correctly. But if they're saying we're supposed to get paid this, and we're not, is that a breach on their part?
Could be a breach for sure. That's on my list, is that you should ask for the right to audit.
How many agents do you know that honestly ask for an audit? Very few.
Once they start,
Tina, yes.
Look, once they start, yeah. And I tell you, if it wasn't for Tina, Tina and I, we go way back, and I tell you, she has opened my eyes and a lot, and big time in the industry.
But I bet you she's been burnt in the past, and that's why she's such a stickler.
But she's been a business owner. She's operated restaurants. She's got into the payment. She's got her computer degree. When someone's been into sales, she'll find that penny in the audit. You're like, hold on, wait. This right here should be paying this, because she truly knew the interchange. She knew the assessments. All this. When back in the day, Mercury is no longer around.
Correct.
But when you mentioned the split of a split, when they were out there giving 50% to the ISV partners, it was 50%, of the reward cards, the debit cards, they weren't getting paid on, and they definitely weren't getting paid on the 4 cents that they were burying in the assessments. So these are big things that, I mean, if you're missing out 4 pennies a transaction, and it says that you're actually getting paid correctly, those transactions add up. Like, I mean, it cost the company from going public.
So in an audit, wow, that it did. Wow. So in an audit, like I guess when an agent asks for an audit, is that something that should be included in the original contract?
If you don't have that right in your contract, you
can't ask.
You can't ask for it.
Okay, got it. So that's take note from that. Look at this camera. Ask for audits and put it in your agreement, people.
This episode of the Paycast podcast is sponsored by Sigma, a direct processor for faster payments and higher profits. Learn more at sigma.com.
So, Scott, have you ever seen a scenario where maybe it's a good contract for the agent, or pick any industry, but one side sues the other, and even though it is a good contract, maybe one side just has deeper pockets, and it's kind of just see how long we can drag this out kind of thing?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate common scenario, right? Your ability to enforce a contract is depending on how deep your pockets are. I learned that very early in my career. It was a different area. I was selling phone systems for a major telecom company, and they breached my contract, and I went to a lawyer, and they're like, "Yeah, you've got a winnable case, but you can't fight them. You don't have enough money to do it." So I decided to go to law school.
That's one way to
There
go.
The light bulb.
So I went to law school. But if you're in business like this and you're signing these contracts that are worth, like you were saying, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, possibly, you've got to be putting some of that money aside to be able to enforce your rights.
Got it.
Or it's just the paper's worthless.
Yeah.
And so until you have the ability to enforce it, and that doesn't just mean pay the legal fees, right? And a lawyer's going to ask you for $10,000-$20,000 retainer to even start a case like that. And then you've also probably, if you're in a dispute, they're probably holding some funds that you want, or you wouldn't be in the dispute.
Right.
So now you're spending more money, and you have less coming in, and they're going to try to stretch you out to either put you into a settlement or make you quit.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a very unfortunate scenario, but it happens a lot.
So what I hear from you is know your contract, or at least if you don't know your contract, get a lawyer to help you understand your contract. Redlining is not wrong. Like, you can redline. Now the question is, do they agree to it or do they not? But at the end of the day, what I'm really hearing you say is know your partner.
Yeah.
Know who you're in business with. And I think a lot of times agents, because they see dollar signs and they know that there's a potential for them to do well, and they hear the great stories about, hey, I'm closing this dual pricing account, I'm going to make $5,000 a month off this one account. They see dollar signs, but the overall end of it is knowing who you're in business with. Just like how you got to know who you're in bed with.
You know what's crazy?
Shout out to my wife. Go ahead.
Wonderful woman, wonderful.
That's not
we'll
in the
dance
script
again.
at all.
It was not in the script, but I had to give her a shout out.
That's not in the script. Give her a shout out.
I mean, I guess this could also be why a lot of reps have different nests. Do they fully trust who they're with? And
what do you mean by that, Carlos?
Well, you could be boarding on Fiserv, you could be boarding on TSYS, you could be boarding on Sigma, you could be boarding with this ISO, with this ISO, or this one might have a specialty that they go through, whether it's B2B, this one might be really good at restaurants. But I think it also comes to play maybe a trust factor there, or it's like, hey, you know what, I don't want to board all of this over here because I've heard this, or if something does happen, then it goes. Or, something happens to me, how do I make sure that, if one company stops paying, and I'm only doing everything with one company, that revenue stops to my spouse, to my kids, what can happen? At least if something happens over here, then at least I know that this income's coming in. So do you see that a lot? And, how does an agent protect themselves from that?
I hear that a lot. I hadn't heard it called that before, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense to not have all your eggs in one basket. Yeah.
Would you recommend doing that?
It depends.
In the contract, I guess it can state you can't do that, right?
It could say
it
that.
could
say that.
It shouldn't
say whatever it
shouldn't say that because you're an independent contractor, but that doesn't mean it won't.
Yeah, but then that's
Shouldn't say you can't work for
Right.
in North America. But
exactly. It's almost like what you said, where you're 1099, but then you have a quota. I got to do 3 deals a month to get my residuals. So
And that's where the recruiter messes up.
Correct.
They
So
send you the wrong paperwork.
So that's where I think we just have to be smart and really pay attention to what we're signing. The question I have for you, Scott, is what other areas or red flags have you seen in a lot of these agreements that 1099 agents don't pay? We looked at exclusivity. We looked at active behavior or conduct. What else should be? We also even talked about if the company gets sold. Is there anything else that a 1099 agent should be aware of when it comes to representing a bigger entity?
Yeah, you want to look at, do you have the right to buy or assign your residuals?
Okay.
Right, because at some point you may need to convert those residuals into cash. And so you'd want to look in your agent agreement for some sort of clause that how that would happen.
Okay.
And there should be, again, I use that word reasonableness, but there should be some sort of reasonable standard about how you would get that done.
Okay, got it. All right, I like that. One other question I'm asking, then I'm gonna shut up.
No, you're.
Let's say yes, I am. This is
just for this show,
because I know we got we don't have a lot of time, but this question is my last one. You're an agent. You sign up with an ISO. You start to be a rock star sales guy. Most contracts have terms, right? What's your usual term for a contract?
3 to 5 years.
All right, so let's say 5 years goes by, everything's been smooth. Is that an ideal time to renegotiate where you have a little bit of leverage? How big does leverage play once you've proven yourself as a sales partner to go back to the table and say, hey, can we negotiate some of these terms?
Yeah, back to your sports analogy. I'm watching that Dallas Cowboys documentary, and when Emmitt Smith held out after his second year because he had proven he was a known commodity, and he wanted his money.
Right.
It's the same with agents. So the leverage is the performance, and so if you've proven that you can perform, they want to keep you.
Correct.
And so no one wants an unhappy person, and so that's the time to go ask for that negotiation. To hey, can we make some changes to this agreement?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with an agent going back and saying, hey, our contract's coming up. I'd like to go over these terms.
No. Nothing.
Remember that. I told you that was the last thing I was going to say.
It's actually not the last thing you're going to say because I'm going to have a question for you. But
there you go.
To wrap up, and let's go through all three of you guys. One piece of advice for not even necessarily just an agent that's starting new, but maybe an agent that's been doing this for 30 years and they just got lucky, haven't looked at contract, but haven't been in a bad one. What's one piece of advice you would give any of those groups when it comes to ISO agreements and contracts?
Understand the agreement that you have in front of you, whether it's you're getting ready to sign it or you've already signed it. Get with a legal professional that understands what they're doing and have them go through it with you and explain your obligations under that agreement so that you know what your rules are.
Yeah. My advice would be, I'm going to steal your term, don't go into it blindly. I like the prenup versus postnup analogy. I'm taking that. I'm taking that. Get everything out in writing. Know what you're committed to, and also know what your ISO is committed to. And then that way, nobody can say they've been caught off guard. I like the prenup versus postnup. You got to come up with something new.
I got one. I got one.
You got to come up with something new.
I got one. I tell you what. When I purchased a house, I had an attorney. There was a seller's and there was a buyer's attorney. And if you used the seller's attorney, you were signing a paper saying that you're in agreement, that's dual representation, and there's a contract for that for a reason. But why is it that we go into buying a house, whether it's $100,000, $1 million house, right? And you know you're going to pay the attorney, right? You're doing it to protect yourself. You're looking at the real estate contract. But now you have an agreement that can make you a whole bunch of money. You never know where it's going to be. Your only competition is the person you see in the mirror. So that's the one that makes you or breaks you. The contract can make you or break you, right? So, when I went into it, I signed it blindly, which was really crazy because I bought a house at 24 years old. And we read all the paperwork. They're like, hey, wait, the washing machine wasn't there? So, hey, wait, do I not get paid the correct residuals with the audit? Can I not pass this on to my family if I die? We need to know what those terms are, and we need to know what we can redline and ask for.
Right. Awesome. Well, my takeaway from this and for the viewer is that even though this is a dog-eat-dog kind of industry that we're talking about here, there are guys like you out there that will help. I mean, there's groups. You run a couple of them, I think.
Yeah, me and Carlos actually oversee one of them.
There you go.
I love working with you, brother. Give me some.
There you go.
Because one thing I can say is he has a pure heart to help people avoid.
He threw me in.
I kind of did. I voluntold him.
There you go.
but he has a heart, just like I do, to make sure people avoid these mistakes. The reason why this podcast is going to be so powerful is because it's appealing to the naivete and a little bit you always say ignorance can be bad, but ignorance, if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And the only way that you know is you ask.
Right.
So this podcast is going to be powerful to be able to help that out, because a lot of the mistakes that we've made and the stuff that we hear and see,
Real-world stuff.
people like Scott and like yourself, Chase, you're bringing value to an audience that is going to listen.
Mm-hmm. And to speak on Scott, it's great to have Scott on, because it's obvious that you're thinking much deeper than the words on the agreement or the number of the split. Like we talked about, the kind of the integrity of the people that you're working with. I feel like you're probably telling your clients that same thing. So it's a lot more than just the agreement, obviously.
Yeah, thanks, Chase.
So let's wrap it up here. This has been great, guys. Love hanging out with my two favorite agents. Like I said, for now,
We just for this
my
episode.
favorite attorney. But seriously, thank you guys. This has been great. The last one was
That's been
awesome.
Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks, guys.
for joining us, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Paycast Network.